What's going on, Matt? How's it going?
Good, good. For everyone that's there, I just feel like I should say something. I didn't get warning from you, Mr. Owens, that there was going to be video involved. My mother did teach me better than this. She taught me better than this to show up at an event like this, dressed like this. So anyway, but here we are. So it's all about what we got to say, really. So not how we look.
Hey, you got the Dodger hat on, so that's all that counts, man. Don't worry about it. You got the real estate knowledge to go with it, so it doesn't really matter, you know. So, well, thank you very much for joining us, Matt. For those of you guys on the line, we're talking today about building your real estate A team. And I think it's probably one of the most important things associated with investing because, you know, we really can't do this ourselves and you have to have reliable people that you can count on. And I don't know about you, Matt, but when I was starting, it's probably one of the hardest things to develop and keep consistent is a good team. What's your thoughts?
I think it's probably the key ingredient. It's the most important thing.
Okay.
You know, I'm an income investor and you just can't create cash flow unless that cash flow is being managed properly, you know, and it takes people to manage it. So
I hear you. And before we get started, can you kind of talk about, I mean, a lot of the people on the line know what I do. I'm a full-time investor as well, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about, you know, can you explain to everybody what you do, what your experience is, where you primarily make your money and how you do what you do?
Sure. Yeah, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years of my life in the music business and did very well for myself, made my millions by the time I was 30. Nice. And then that digital download thing came along and it changed the way people consume music, tipped the whole industry upside down. And I went from 7 figures to making $7 an hour. And at age 34, I was bagging groceries. So that's where my real estate starts.
Okay. So you learned a lot really fast.
Yeah. I sat there for 6 months having the world's biggest pity party and blaming everybody and everything on my circumstances. And after about 6 months of that was pretty exhausting. And realized that nobody was coming to my rescue, that nobody was giving me a hand up. There were plenty of shoulders to cry on, plenty of sympathizers with me, but no one was helping. So I realized I had to do something. I didn't know what to do. And one of the most unlikely sources was the grocery store manager. And coincidentally, he was the same age as me, so we were both 34 years old. He was the manager, I was bagging groceries. And he'd been working there since I think he was 16, so he was actually only 2 years away from receiving a portion of his pension, and that was his plan. And he shared with me one day, he said, Matt, I'm just 2 years away from retirement. I'm going to get 75% of my pension at 20-year mark. And along the way, I've been able to acquire these 6 apartment buildings. And he kind of opened up his portfolio and says, now the cash from the apartment buildings is paying me more than what my 75% pension is going to be. And I'm retiring at the age of 40 and I'm going to be done. And I was like, wow. And he said, I was like, what? And, it wasn't wealthy, but he was certainly sustainable and independent financially.
Right? Yeah.
Totally. And he said, he said this one thing to me, one sentence, and I've probably said it at least 2 or 3 times a week ever since. He said, real estate is the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth. And that was just the right words at the right time for me because I just needed an answer. And so the next day that night, I actually went and started Googling everything real estate and ran across an aunt who happened to be a real estate agent, very successful agent in Seal Beach. And sent her an email. We had lunch the next day, and I think within 24 hours, I was registered for a real estate school thinking that I was supposed to get a license. Okay, well, you need a real estate license. That's the first place we got to start. And
right, of course.
It only took me 4 years to realize that probably wasn't the best action. And if you really want the money in real estate, it's on the other side of the desk. And so I made that transition and made a large investment in my real estate investing education. And stopped representing other people and started representing myself as a buyer and seller on my own behalf and started buying and selling property. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think we met 10 years ago at Nouveau Riche, right? The educational school. And, a lot of people didn't like Nouveau Riche because they didn't think that it provided enough value. I personally felt like it was the most value that I could be getting for that education because it teaches you kind of the basics and it depends on what you're going to do with that knowledge, right? And I remember talking to my stepbrother that had called me at the time and said, hey, you got to go to this real estate school. I was working at my CPA firm going, I want to bang my head against this computer. I can't deal with taxes and audit anymore. And then he calls me and says, hey, I just, spent a bunch of money on on the real estate classes, I'm like, you got jacked. First thing in my head. And then I went there and I immediately had a calling for real estate, and I could just feel it. And I remember going to that school and meeting you there and stuff like that, and you were networking with a bunch of different people. And actually, it's funny because by meeting you there and seeing some of the networking that you were doing with some of your other relationships there is really what made me realize how important networking was in developing your relationships, which then kind of spew into your teams and help you develop those relationships in multiple facets, which makes you really powerful to have all those resources. And so, tell me what did you start off with in real estate specifically, and what are you doing now in real estate?
Sure. Well, I started by just driving for dollars. They had an expression there, move at the speed of instruction. You don't need to know it all before you get started. And so I basically just did what the mentors were telling me to do.
Okay.
And I found a property. My first deal was in Long Beach on Newport Avenue, Newport and Ocean. And long story short, it was a single family residence. We flipped it and turned it into a fourplex and flipped that. And I put about $26,000 in my pocket in my first 60 days of signing up for that education. And
awesome.
I was hooked. I was like, wow, this is a lot more fun than what I was doing, showing families houses on the weekends.
Right.
So I was totally hooked. And
people's emotions, right? Yeah.
Right. And I was like, okay, so all I got to do is find deals, because I did that deal with none of my own money. I basically found the deal, got under contract, and found money partners to do that deal with. And it just kind of clicked for me, like, oh, find the deal first, and then the money's really easy to find.
Right.
So that was the skill that I really developed, was finding those deals. And actually, Matt, I don't know if you know this or not. I think I've shared it with you once or twice before, but I really, before I even knew what wholesaling was, you had shared with me, hey, I'll be glad to pay you a referral fee if you go and sell some of my properties, right? So I just created my own flyers with your properties on them, with my information. I just started going to live events, and during the needs and hats section, stood up and say, hey, I got a cash flowing property in Memphis. Financing's in place. Contact me at the back of the room, and I'll hook you up. And so I did that over and over again. I think I sold 2 or 3 of those for you. And then through that Nouveau Riche, that giant network, I'd found people from all over the country that were doing something similar as you and had deals. And so I just started representing everybody else's deals and making a good referral that way. Until, I started buying my own. And I was very much an income-oriented investor. At that time, when I was flipping properties, I needed money to eat. But I knew through that famous book, I don't know, you heard it, or maybe you heard of it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It hasn't made a very big name for itself. It's not it's really difficult to find.
But that book,
I really got
my CPA from a job. So
yeah, from that book, I really got the concept of passive income and how it might not be an exciting road to wealth, an exciting road to financial freedom. It is the fastest when you put it down on this compared to flipping properties and holding properties. It's the fastest, and so I started just acquiring my own. So I had this little philosophy: I'll flip 3 and hold 1, flip 3, hold 1, flip 3, hold 1, and that was it until I was able to push my expenses down low enough to where I got my passive income high enough, and I was like out of the rat race. That was the whole goal.
Nice.
So I did that, and as you can imagine, when people are seeing you bagging groceries one year, and just a few years later, now you're playing golf on a Tuesday because you can. A lot of people start to want to pick your brain, and you got a lot of free coffees, a lot of free lunches, and exchange information, and recognize that there was a demand for this type of information. I think Nouveau Riche had been defunct by that time,
right.
And so I started teaching as well. So up to date, fast forward today, I've got maybe 50 single family residences right in there somewhere. I've got 14 units of multifamily left in my portfolio, and I've probably got 24 seller finance notes. And so that's what I'm doing right now. Anything that generates income is what I'm about. And then we have a turnkey operation also similar to yours. And we flip probably 15 of those a month. Okay. So that's what the whole business looks like today. And we got a pretty big educational program as well.
And how many podcasts are you up to now?
Just one. we got up to 6. And it was a full-time job managing them. So I just reduced it all.
You have one podcast, but how many episodes of the podcast is what I was really doing?
Oh, yeah, I think 280 something right now.
Wow. So, and if people on the line want to learn that education, how do they reach out and get that education from you, or be able to like sign up for the podcast?
Sure, they can go to epicrealestateinvesting.com, epicrealestateinvesting.com, and that'll forward right to the iTunes page.
Cool.
Click subscribe.
Yep. Okay. So, and you know, looking at your history of investing and stuff, obviously you probably went through multiple ups and downs with multiple team members, just like I did, you know, in different facets. And so, you know, the whole point of today is to kind of go through some of these different team members and kind of talk about the pros and cons associated with those team members, what makes a good one, what makes a bad one, you know, how they've cost us money in the past and things like that, of course, and how they've saved us money as well for a really good one. So, you know, and talking about the passive cash flow piece, which I think is the end goal. Whether you're flipping or you're holding, the end game is to take that money from flipping and invest it into cash flow so that you can be financially free. Because the power that gives you at that point is you're basically unstoppable at that point, right? I mean, or unless there's a black swan event or, you know, some craziness happens. But, of course, you know, that's the goal. And so I think the biggest team member that I can think of that is the most important when it comes to passive cash flow investments like hold properties and things like that is the property management, obviously. And I know I went through 5 of them before, you know, starting my own management company, and then fired myself and opened another one, and have even outside team members and things like that you know, work with us. But in your opinion, what makes, and this is a very general question, but what makes a good property manager? And then also, what kind of issues have you had with property management where they've not performed for you as well?
Wow.
Yeah, you got an hour conversation right now. Yeah, exactly. So right. I guess the point format would be the best. But
I mean, we're both in Memphis. I've gone through 5 or 6 just in Memphis also. I'm sure you and I have shared those experiences with some of those. You know, when you're interviewing a property manager, or really any team member, with property management, because I think it is the most important person on your team if you ever expect to be financially free and receive passive income through real estate. They're always on their best behavior during that initial interview. They're on a job interview. They tell you exactly what you want to hear.
Right.
And so I was really quick to hire, and it just the first person that said it, because I was eager. I wanted to get going. I wanted to build my passive income.
Yeah, okay, cool. You're good. Ready to go. Yeah.
Ready to go. Exactly. I couldn't imagine that people don't do what they say. You know what I mean? And I can't imagine that someone that works for you would actually lie to you. I don't understand that my mindset at the beginning. But the best way to find a property manager is to work with a bunch of bad ones. And I think once you find the good one where it's actually performing is once you find that good one, keep looking though. Right?
Keep back up in case.
Exactly. So one of the 2 things that we've done is that's really kind of mitigated the risk of finding property managers is, one, we always have 2 in a market.
Okay.
We make sure that they know about each other, and in a very friendly, amicable way, right? So, but just that underlying notion or knowledge that there's somebody else in town that's getting business from you, right. You'll find that expenses tend to drop, performance tends to increase, and just that natural, I guess, competition. Right. Second thing that we've done now, which has really helped a lot, is when we're looking for a new property manager, where we're going to a new market or we need a new backup or something like that, we'll give them 1 property, okay, to try out with. Because we've put some people out of business with our turnkey operation. We said, great, we're selling 15 properties this month. We need you to manage all of them. And they don't have the system to scale, take that on, the ability to take that on. Boy, you can turn some really good intended people and some good-hearted people and cause them to do really bad things for their desire to please you and their desire to not say no to you. So, oh yeah, give us the 15 properties. We'd be glad to do it. And all of a sudden, you know, it's more than they can handle. And now they got to rob Peter to pay Paul. And, you know, they want to keep you happy, so they're not telling you everything. And, you know, what you do in the dark shows itself in the light. And 3 to 6 months, you start to learn what's really going on, and it's a disaster. all of a sudden you're writing checks to your customers to make everything right. Well, I'm sure you've been there. So
I have, and it's interesting because I feel like different property managers have, some of them have different skill. They all have different skill sets, and so some are really good at accounting, but really bad at collections or repairs, right? Because I mean, the biggest aspects of these are, the accounting piece and making sure that is correct, and the communication, which I think tends to fall off more as you get to bigger management companies and things like that. But also, in certain instances, some of the smaller guys just are not good at that. Maybe they're in the field all the time, and so maybe they don't have the right people that are communicating consistently and having that one person that does nothing but communicate with clients. And then, the accounting function, a lot of people don't fully, like most business owners don't understand accounting, let alone you have a property management company that's responsible for collecting hundreds of units of rents from multiple units and getting that straight. I think that could be a big issue. And then at the same time, dealing with the delinquencies, for example, most of them, like you said, they'll tell you, oh yeah, this is our delinquency procedure. We call them the 6th of the month. We do mailers. We do, XX. This is when we evict. And then you look at your property, and all of a sudden it's been 2 months and they haven't filed eviction, and you're going, what happened to your procedures that you told me about? So the same thing when it comes to marketing for leasing or service calls, where they don't check up on their service call guys to make sure it was done correctly. And I feel like different ones have different aspects, and the only way you really know what's a good and bad manager is going through the bad ones to realize, I don't want my manager to do that. This is the way I want my property to be managed. So I feel like, and tell me what your thoughts are. Do you think it's better to kind of go into it with an expectation saying, this is what I expect to be done, and then kind of hold them accountable to do that? And if so, how do you kind of hold them accountable? How do you communicate with them to hold them accountable in these instances?
We've tried so many different approaches, and kind of what I opened up here with is just don't have a single point of failure. Let them know that somebody else in town is doing it, and that kind of takes care of a lot. The real challenge, what most people don't realize with property managers, like if your property is performing and they're collecting rent and they're sending you the payments, if everything's going good, that's the smallest amount of money they could possibly make.
Right.
So they don't actually get paid unless something is going wrong, right? Whether it's a repair or it's an eviction or whatever it may be. So like your incentives aren't in alignment with your property manager. So just as long as you understand that, then and you don't over negotiate your property manager's ability to make any money, because some people are like, I'm not paying 10% or 8% is way too high. It's 6%, and I'm only paying 1/4 first month's rent for your fee. And you try to get really stern. You think you're being a good, shrewd businessman or woman and negotiating that you can really create a crappy situation for yourself in that way. And so you don't want to steal your property manager's ability to make money. You don't want to steal that away from them and over-negotiate that. Because I'm glad to give them 20% if I never had to hear from them again. My checks just showed up. That would be it.
It's funny because that disincentive for that lack of alignment of interest, I think, is probably the most important piece. Like I've seen in management contracts where they get $50 a month, no matter whether it's rented or not, and then they have the exclusive right to sell the property for you if you're tired of it. So you're bleeding. They have no incentive to put the tenant in there because they're getting paid either way, and then they get the real estate commissions for selling it. That is like a big issue in my opinion. And I look at the incentives like markups on repairs, leasing fees, eviction costs, and I would much rather go and pay a 10% management fee instead of 8 or 7, and say no markups on repairs, or maybe you do no markup but you get a trip charge or something like that per repair as a flat fee, so it's not incentivized based on how much the repair is, because you want them incentivized to keep that repair low as much as possible, but still get paid for it, because otherwise they just never will do a repair, And so, and at the same time on, eviction costs, I don't want to go there and pay them on those items because, I want to make sure that they're not incentivized to just evict right away. But also it's a catch-22, because what if they don't evict because it costs them labor time to go evict and deal with that? And so it really, like you said, you got to go back and forth and see the happy medium, and also really analyze your accounting statements on a monthly basis to make sure, hey, how much do they really make on this? Does this look right? Understand what your repairs are and things like that, so that you know you're not getting marked up like crazy, on those items, and really they're performing, and try to align those interests as best you can, without really cutting that income, like you're saying, because you want them getting paid for what they're doing. You want them making money for this. So I think that's really important.
But you said, reviewing that statement every month. Passive income doesn't mean uninvolved income. So you want to stay involved, and in a subtle way, let them know that you're watching without bugging them. Let them know that you're paying attention.
You just ask the question every once in a while when something comes up, even if everything's going fine. We even try to take a more active approach on our side by going through and saying, hey, we want to implement our own tenant retention program in place. Can we go through? We want to mail like a gift card to the tenant once a year, or good tenants, or we go through and say we want to enact now an annual inspection on our properties, so that way we know, okay, is there any damage, or is there anything that's going to come up in the future, like an HVAC system that I need to allocate money for? I think the active management, like you're discussing, and if they don't get back to you on that communication, making sure you have follow-up procedures, just like you're chasing any lead, almost, where you're like, hey, every couple days, have I heard back from you? Let me make sure that I'm getting that communication done correctly. And then understanding, like you said up front, it's hard to understand what their specific procedures are, because they're going to tell you what they know the procedure should be, whether they're doing it or not, right? So, like you said, it may take 6 months to know if they're bad or good, and so starting them off slow can be gigantic for your own capital losses if there's an issue. And so, I think that's really important. And so, in addition to the property management piece, which I think is the most important for this buy and hold aspect, let's talk a little bit about the contractors and the construction side. So, in my opinion, it's very important to have a good hold portfolio as well as flip sometimes in your own business to get that capital going so you can eat, like you're talking about. Everybody has overhead. And so, on the construction side, I think it plays right into it, just like you're saying on the management, to know that there's other people you can go to if they don't perform. What kind of headaches have you had on the construction side in the past that you can, that you run into every once in a while, or you run into, consistently even?
Okay. Very similar stories with property management. You have a little bit more control over them because you control their paycheck, and you pay them based on performance. At least that you should do it, not the way we did it necessarily up front. I think real estate is really easy. It's really simple. It's really easy. If you got a good property manager and you got a good contractor, it's really tough to mess it up. So I feel that you should do as much due diligence on your property management and your contractor as you do on the property itself.
Okay, that's a great feedback, dude. I agree 100%.
Yeah, totally. So the contractors, make sure they're licensed. I've gotten lazy, been burned by contractors that weren't licensed. I just took their word for it. That's one.
I have as well.
The other part, you should always have a plan B there as well. It was one of the same. My property manager and contractor was one person. And in the middle of a big project, he passed away. And there I am here in Los Angeles. There in Memphis.
What do I do?
And, time is money. So I had to find somebody to take his spot quickly. So I hired the first person that said the right thing to me. And that person did a terrible job. Somebody else came in behind that and said, oh, I can do this. So gave some more money. That person did a terrible job. So, as they say, slow to hire, quick to fire, right? But I think really the only thing that has worked with us, or worked the best for us, is having two of each team members. And when it comes to a property manager, contractor, and realtor, two of each, and letting them know that, hey, there's somebody else in town that I'm buying properties from, and casually, like man, this is a great property you just got me. I can't wait to fix this one. It's actually really close to what the other guy got me. His is right down the street, so we'll be working on those at the same time.
Or it's a little higher than the other one, so we're really close on this compared to the other.
Right. just mentioning it casually, like it's no big deal in your community, rather than not saying, "Hey, you better shape up, or else I'm gonna use the other guy next time." Like we don't do that, but we don't keep it a secret that we're working with more than just that one person.
Okay. We on the construction side, I think that's really important, like you said, because if they know that they're the only ones you're going to, there's price creep up, there's quality control goes down, and the time extends, is what it seems like at least.
Right. Yeah. You ever watch that TV show Scorpion?
I think I've seen it one time before. Yeah.
It's about this Mensa group, I think, is what they are, and they go and they solve crime. But the kind of their way that they always solve crime and solve problems and issues is they tap into human nature.
Okay.
Right. So that tapping into a contractor's fear of losing the job or not getting the next job, right, or not getting all of the jobs. Tapping into that human nature with the property manager and contractor, we found it's a good strategy. It's what's it's what stabilized us. That's for sure.
I think also, especially when you're dealing with contractors, the holdback approach of holding that final payment for that inspection and things like that is huge, and it's a much more incentive than the manager losing 1 month's management fee. Like you said, that's not a very much money. So having that contractor where you have a holdback every time before that punch list happens, and having the right structure in place. But I think also setting that expectation up front, saying, look, this is the payment stream, this is how it's going to work, and and also as much as possible try to get a contract in place. If it's a $15,000 rehab or $20,000 rehab, it's much harder to get those contracts in place, of course, unless it's a brand new person that you're dealing. But if you're dealing with a multifamily rehab or something like that, I'd be absolutely getting a contract every single time with stipulations for timing, for insurance, for the making sure they're licensed, because it's amazing. I had a contractor one time that he was doing a big building for me, and it was a $500,000 rehab. It was a very big rehab, and we had the holdbacks and everything included in that. And I asked him one time, he was asking me, hey, how do I get audited financials so that I can go get a bond for this big commercial project? And I'm telling him about, the costs involved and, how clean are you right now? How do you know if your financials are in good shape now? And he says, well, if I got money in the bank, then I'm doing okay. And I'm like, oh, man. So I immediately was like, okay, we're doing a little bit more of a holdback right now. I'm paying for 100% of materials now. And, it's a matter of understanding what their skill sets are and what they're good and bad at. And then forming that relationship in a way where it's structured for your success and protection as much as possible, I think,
Right.
So, have you had issues with general contractors going out to their subs and those subs not doing good jobs and things like that in the past?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you only have to do a half a dozen properties to probably experience everything that you could possibly experience with a contractor. And, that's your that's your training period, those first 6 properties. But I was going to say something, it escaped me. But I think setting the expectations up front, having a clear, defined milestone, establish those milestones of when this has to be done before this payment is released. Just being very meticulous with that, and then we hold that final payment until we get certificate of occupancy. So.
Okay, and how do you go about looking at your bids to make sure you're not getting stolen from? How do you do your own homework on a deal? Say they come in with a bid, and you're looking at the property, going, okay, how do I know if this is accurate or not?
Right. Well, we have the benefit, I guess, since we work in multiple markets, so we're getting bids from multiple people all the time. So after you put that in play for half a dozen years, you're like, you pretty much know. You know what a water heater costs. You know what a refrigerator costs. You know what a HVAC or a new roof costs. So that's
decent gauge.
Look at it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've gone through, and on a $5,000 rehab, I brought 5 different people to a job when I was trying to test new contractors before. Some of them came in at, out of 5 of them, 1 came in about right. A couple of them came in at 10, a couple of them at 15, a couple at 20, and you're like, you're going, what the heck is going on here? Like, these guys are just trying to steal from you, and they think that you don't know. Even though I've explained to them our experience level and we know what things cost, it's amazing how much that variance happens. So I think your best protection on the construction side is knowing what things cost, just like you said. And go to Home Depot, price everything out as much as possible, all the main stuff, you know?
You can look up all the items on HomeDepot.com.
Right. I'd probably be lost walking through Home Depot if in reality I'd be like, okay, I can't find this. I give up. I'm going to go online. You know?
If I didn't get lost, I'd definitely get hurt.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So some of the other team members, I think, are I think the contractors and property management, like you said, are probably some of the most important team members. From an investor side of things, what makes a good realtor for you when you're using them as a resource, whether it's buying or selling properties? What makes them a good or bad realtor?
They definitely got to be a little bit more entrepreneurial minded.
Okay.
They got to be a problem solver. They have to have experience with investors. It's really good if they're an investor themselves.
Okay.
Right? And they're kind of hard to find. I mean, I was a real estate agent. I worked in 3 different real estate offices with, hundreds of real estate agents, interacted with a bunch of them. That's not the majority by any means. You know what I mean?
What percentage would you say actually has investing knowledge?
I would say in our offices, the 3 different offices, I've been in a Keller Williams office, a first team office, and then I was briefly in a Coldwell Banker office. And there's always that one guy that has the corner office that knows anything about investing. You know what I mean? Like, there's always the 1 or 2 people in that office that deal with that or even can hold a reasonably intelligent conversation about investing.
I love it.
Finding a good realtor is just like prospecting for a good motivated seller, to tell you the truth.
Okay. And I would 100% agree with you on that. And most of those realtors that have that investing knowledge may not be willing to work with you because they're investing. They got better things to do. They can make more money in different ways. So I find that it's good.
When you find that person, make sure you follow through on those first couple deals. Because if you're just as a previous real estate agent, former real estate agent, holding an open house on a weekend, if 10 people walk in that open house, 3 of them say, "Yeah, I'm an investor, so send me some good deals." That's the conversation they have. So you're just like, yeah, whatever, and then you send them. But when you're new, you don't know any better, so you go ahead and send them deals, and no one ever buys anything.
Right.
So if you go into open houses and you have that kind of conversation, that dialogue, or you're interacting with real estate agents, give them specifically what you're looking for, and if they deliver it, you better buy it if you want to create that relationship and establish that relationship. You better follow through and make it happen for them.
I agree, and I think especially when the biggest challenge is agents waste so much time on people that never do anything, like you're saying. And so what I do is if they send me deals that don't work, I break down the math to them in detail, saying this is what I see, this is why it doesn't work, this is where I need to be. So help me find, here's even the flip spreadsheet that you can plug the numbers into. Anything that fits this mold, I'm going to buy immediately. And so giving them that knowledge base and showing them that you're actually looking at it, you're just not like, to not respond is to absolutely lose that agent forever. You're never going to use them as a resource ever again because they're in it on commission only. They're not making anything on you if you're not performing. So, that perspective I think is very, very key. And the investing side I think is very key. I know a ton of agents that are my clients that, they know some real estate investing, not a ton. They're great on the seasoned ones are great on the buy and sell side, on that aspect, and have a great knowledge base when they're dealing with homeowners that I normally don't deal with. I usually deal with investors. But at the same time, it's like a specific skill set. That's what it is. It's not the math and the numbers. They don't know everything about it. And there's some really good ones, but like I said, they're doing their own deals a lot of the times too. So. Okay.
So,
I hear you. And then on the lender side, I think that's another big piece, right? So we talked about the management, the contractors, the realtors, the lending piece. I think I went through like 30 lenders in the past 10 years at least. Just traditional lenders that sell to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac because they go to different brokerages and they can't do your market, or or they start falling off because they get too much activity, or something ends up happening where they can't perform, and you got to go somewhere else. What's your experience dealing with the traditional lenders, and then what's their importance compared to private lenders that might be able to fund different types of transactions?
Yeah, I mean, you got to find a lender that understands investment property and understands, LTV, ARV, all that kind of stuff, rehab, and what do you call it, portfolio loans and stuff like that. Because your typical lender that does Fannie Mae stuff, and that's probably not going to be the best solution for you. They're a little bit easier to find than a good investor-friendly realtor. But you want to find someone that can problem solve. And I mean, I remember when I was a real estate agent, like I knew, every lender there is in the office trying to get your business. And I had great drinking buddies, great friends that I was as lenders and everything. And there was one guy, I didn't even like him that much, but you know what? Every time I took him a deal, he got it done. So that's why when I need to close this thing, I'm taking it to him, and I'll drink beer with the other guys. But
nice.
So yeah. So I mean, lenders. That's not difficult to find. You want to find someone who's a good problem solver. That's a really big quality there. When you're talking about private or non-traditional, go ahead.
I said also on the traditional side, I think because of the new TRIG rules and things like that, the communication and making sure that everything is done up front is very important to getting that deal closed. The problem solver person that's thinking ahead and saying, okay, we have this many issues with this transaction or this hair on this deal. How do I make sure up front it's structured right so we get it closed, and that everybody's getting their documents timely, the communication is timely, because so many of them just don't communicate correctly. So, I mean, that's what I've seen as far as the traditional side. And so what's your thoughts on the non-traditional, the private investor side?
Private, well, there's two types of private money. There's your hard money, which you go Google and you can find it, right? And it's easy to find. So the only problem is it's expensive, right? And then the other side of that is your relationship money. So it's a little bit more difficult to find. It takes a little bit longer to establish, but it's typically much cheaper.
Okay.
Right? So I think it's worth.
How do you structure trust with one of these private investors you're talking about?
Start with whatever they'll give you and overperform.
Okay.
That's key. I mean, even if the deal's a loser, overperform and give them back their money anyway. Once you find one person like that and you do that first deal, all of a sudden you thought they only had $50,000 to lend you, right? And all of a sudden, like you perform back and you gave them their $55,000 back in 2 months, and they're like, well, actually I have $100,000, right? So what can you do with this? So your job is to say what you're going to do and do what you say and keep performing. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm done with these little single family houses. What can you do with, if I cashed out this CD over here, what could you do with $500,000, right? And then my brother's got a little bit of money, and it just grows like that. So I think the best thing you can do is just, you're the expert, right? You're the real estate person. Give me the money and I'll give you some more back. Is how that relationship should be. And anytime you're looking for money, first of all, you're not borrowing money. You're presenting an opportunity to somebody.
Okay.
You're doing them a favor, because the hardest part of this whole business is finding the deal. So you have more power than you think you have. And most people in this business that don't have any money or don't have a lot of money to use, they think they're at a disadvantage, and nothing could be further from the truth. Right. If you put in the sweat equity and you're good at finding deals and creating deals, then you're actually at an advantage there.
I think that's fear governing them, thinking that I don't have the resources to do it, but they really do if they just got out there.
Absolutely. Everybody, what's difficult to you is child's play to somebody else. Just always remember that. And whatever you're looking for, there's somebody out there looking for you too. And so your approach is, I'm bringing an opportunity, and you just need to be prepared to ask 3 questions. One is, how much am I? They're going to want to know, how much am I getting back? When am I getting it back? And how am I protected if I don't? Okay. So those are the 3 main questions. You just have to be able to be prepared to answer right away, and probably answer them in your presentation before the question even gets asked of you. makes a really good presentation. And now, once you've got that locked in, it's just you got to perform.
And how do you explain to somebody how they're protected on, because a lot of people are brand new to lending, but they have a lot of capital out there to deploy, but they, want to make sure that they're protected, and they'll never do it if they're not sure that they're protected, and you can't explain it to them. How do you go about explaining to them how they're protected in the first place, say on a typical trust deed investment?
Sure. So one of our deals is one of our normal routine deals that we do all the time is we'll buy something at, I don't know, say we're all in for, I'll just use round numbers, we're all in for 50.
Okay.
And we're going to go ahead and sell that with seller financing at 90.
Okay.
Right? I would show them that you're in here at what, a 55, almost 60% LTV, right? So you've got 40 grand of equity there. And yeah, but what if that buyer doesn't follow through, right? Well, that's great because I got a list of buyers right here that are ready for this type of deal. So that's one way I would show them that we can show them that they're protected. Second is the LTV amount. And then what I'd say is we're going to sell these with a 50% down payment because people can't go, not everyone can go get qualified for a loan, and they can put a 50% down payment, they still get cash flow. So what we're going to do is we're going to get darn near 80-90% of your money back. I'll give that back to you right away. Right. So you really have this giant equity position in there because we've got all your money back via the down payment. So, right. Well, what if they don't pay, right? What if they stop making payments? Well, here's the beauty of that. If they don't pay, now that you're the bank, you get to foreclose, and guess what? We get to go sell it all over again and collect another 50% down payment. So nice. Your worst case scenario is everything goes right. If everything goes wrong, then you make more money. Well, what if the place burns down? Oh, that's why we have insurance, So you have to be prepared to answer all of those questions in those bad worst case scenarios of how they're protected. And so that's one example of how we do it.
Coming up with all the risks that they can perceive in their mind that you already know about because you've done this for years now. And just being able to say, this is how we mitigate the risks in different ways. And then here's how the paperwork works with the deed of trust that's secured against the property. And here's the promissory note. Go take it to your attorney and have them review it or whatever up front beforehand. All of those types of things are just teaching, right? I mean, basically it's just teaching.
Absolutely. And then once you're all done the way that we do it, I can do it on a bar napkin. Right. I can do it that simply. And I'll say, so now you can see why banks lend money on real estate and they don't actually buy it.
Right.
Because now they're like, oh, now I get it. You know what I'm saying? So do you want to be the bank or do you want to be the landlord, right?
Right.
So,
and I think borrowing money really sets the tone for you to be able to go and do different types of deals and lend money out too, because as you borrow more money from different investors, you get more and more resources. It starts to become a windfall. I remember in the beginning when I first got started, I didn't know anybody with 30 grand, to raise. And then now I'm like, let me raise 500 grand a month for different stuff. It's not as hard because there's so many resources all around you because it goes referral to referral to referral and next person. And it's really interesting what happens because all of a sudden, and then there's the guys that all of a sudden raise $3 million or $4 million in a day that I'm like, how the heck did you just do that? It's just relationships.
Totally. Yeah, and I'm not surprised that, you're a good guy, Matt, so I'm not surprised you have that experience.
It took time.
Of course, but that's the experience anybody would have as long as they just follow through and do what they say they're going to do.
Right. I think the number one thing with investors that you're borrowing money from is even if the deal goes bad, make sure they get paid back their money because if you do, it's a great usage of an example to say, look, I lost money on this deal and I still made sure that investor got whole. And you show them that afterwards, they're like, yeah, well, here's more now, and here's 5 friends because you just really solidified that trust by doing that.
Exactly.
It's pretty amazing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about insurance agents. We got about 15 minutes left, so we got a lot of different people. So, what makes a good or bad insurance agent on your team when you're dealing with different agents involved and different types?
It's ironically, after almost a decade of doing this, I haven't had an insurance claim ever. Until this year, I had 2 of them. I had 2 houses in Memphis burned down, and all within 3 months of each other. So you want an insurance agent that's actually going to pay out. So,
yeah, number one thing, right? Yeah,
that was good. They actually paid out. I just like someone who makes it easy. it's like any other business. I don't know if I have any special request for an insurance. I've had the same guy for, I don't know, probably 7 years.
Okay.
And now he knows the business, and so I just say, here's the address, put insurance on it, please.
Right.
And it's that easy.
We go through, and I like one that will teach you as well. I have one at the very beginning that cost me about $5,000 because he got me a homeowner's policy when I lived in California on a rental policy. It should have been a rental policy, but he got me a homeowner policy, and it cost me $5,000 when I had a loss. And of course, he was fired, and I found somebody else and I really like team members like that teach you about what issues come up, how insurance companies try to get out of things in certain instances, and what to watch out for. Because there's some really low-cost insurance agents out there that just, like you said, won't pay out, and they'll look for any reason not to. And so I think that, like you said, you hit the nail on the head with that first one is pay out first, So that's huge. What about CPAs and bookkeepers? What do you look for in a good CPA?
Well, it's funny that you just said the teaching thing, because I've got two bookkeepers and 2 different CPAs.
Okay.
And I like the people that teach me stuff, that just show me stuff, because that tax code and all that stuff, it changes every single year. That's their job to read it, and they advise me on the new and creative ways I can save money. So I like creative people. And I don't mind, personally, we're not recording this, so this is no big deal. But I don't like playing in the gray area when it comes to that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So I like guys that aren't so straight and narrow, like, oh no, you can't do that, because if that ever goes to Supreme Court, you're going to have to pay this. I'm like, we ain't going to Supreme Court. So that's me. I like a guy that plays in the gray area. And then I like a guy that actually returns my phone call.
I think, that's really true, because a lot of CPAs do not know how to communicate correctly. And a lot of them, they don't know real estate either. They don't understand those things or where to push it and where not to. Because to me, I'm a CPA, but I don't do taxes at all anymore. It's not worth my time anymore. That's why I pay other people to do that piece. But when it comes down to, that side of things, if they know real estate and also can say, look, you can push it here if you're pushing it too much, and they come back and audit you and find a situation that you shouldn't be in, then this is how much you're going to have to pay. I don't like pushing it. I try to go by the book, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm paying as little taxes as I possibly can legally. It's funny. I heard a story from somebody else that pushes it a lot more, and they said, I like seeing the outside of the jail cell, not the inside. So that's the CPA.
I said I like the gray area. I didn't say I liked illegal area. I didn't say that. Okay.
100%. I hear you.
Okay, good.
And I think the CPAs too, having one in each market that you do business in that understands the laws in those different areas sometimes can be beneficial as well. Like in Tennessee, where we do business a lot, if you hold an LLC that's 95% family owned and in Tennessee, then there's no state income taxes for that LLC. But if you have a California LLC that you register there, then that can be an issue. And so sometimes they structure you in different ways depending on what your partnerships are, and things like that can be a big deal. What about attorneys? What types of attorneys do you typically need to have in real estate when you're holding property or flipping property?
Knocking on wood right now, I haven't had a need for an attorney.
Okay.
I just haven't had a need. So it depends what state we're doing our deals in. So we need a closing agent, right?
Okay.
Some of our attorney states, but I do have a couple that help me with asset protection and creative structures like that.
Okay.
But it's nice to have somebody if you need to fire off a letter somewhere.
Right. I agree. Just something that makes it so people don't try to beat you up for no reason. When you start becoming a bigger real estate investor, you start to become a target, of course. But to have those people that you can ask advice from, that can teach you, and just maybe you need to spend an hour consultation with them or something, or you need a 15-minute email out to somebody else, and that's great. The eviction attorney, I think, is key for rental property. Most of the time, the management company handles that, though. And then, like you said, the closing attorneys can be key, though, in certain states like Tennessee, where they're reviewing title and that kind of stuff to make sure you're protected in different ways. They can be really big resources in specific markets because they know the market so well and know what flies there versus, California is a totally different market than most markets around the country. So I wouldn't want to get a Tennessee attorney for a California problem, right? That needs to be solved because the markets and the law is totally different. But I think.
Remember from Chris Wilson at Nouveau Riche, the guy that taught the whole
right,
the cowboy guy. He had some great advice, and I've just kind of stuck to this the whole time. Is that just make sure in every deal that everybody gets what they want, and that's your best attorney right there. Is it that you'll never need one?
Do what's right for people, right?
Absolutely, and I just take the high road every time. It's so much cheaper than going down another path and trying to be right about something.
Even if you don't, it doesn't cost you much money because you're right or something. It still costs you money and time, and it's a substantial amount of time when something happens.
Time, stress.
The stress alone.
Between time and stress, I mean, look at the opportunity cost there when you're not performing at your best and you're doing something else that doesn't pay you, right? So I look at all of those. I'm just like, I'm not.
And what about inspectors? Because inspectors can be key to your success, especially if they're not looking at things correctly or miss something. What do you think is a good inspector, and what kind of things do they do that makes them better than some of the other ones?
The thing with inspectors and appraisers, since that's the next thing on our list, and kind of talk about it both at the same time in the same vein, is that since the crash in 2007, both of those industries have become heavily more scrutinized and regulated, right? And the barrier to entry to become an inspector or to become an appraiser is much higher and more difficult.
And their money went down.
And they're getting paid less. So that's a relationship as well, but even now, like those relationships could border on unethical relationships, right? So you got to be really careful. So they're so afraid of the regulations that are held over their head. They always err on the side of over disclosure, right? And yeah, it's an under appraising, right? So, which is really difficult for our side. So, I don't know if I have a clear cut way to deal with them. What I do is, like, if I'm doing this for a buyer, like, I will prepare them and set their expectations. Here, this is how appraisers work. If you had 10 appraisers go look at a building and you line them against the wall, there's going to be 10 different answers. I guarantee you, there's going to be 10 different answers. Okay, right. It's not an exact science. And the fact that an appraisal is only good on the day it is issued should give you an idea as to there's a lot of variables and things that can happen to appraisals. So it's not exact science. A house is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And if that appraiser isn't writing the check, I wouldn't give that appraisal much credit, right? When it comes to the inspectors. So that's a very litigious industry and a very litigious position. So, if you go buy a house that you had inspected and that inspector failed to find something and you take them into court, they are liable. They are going to lose because that was their job.
Right.
So when they go into a property, they have to disclose everything because they just have to prove that they actually saw something, right? That they actually looked at it, that they didn't miss anything. So they're going to call to court and say, yes, the screw was missing on the GFCI thingy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would recommend having an electrician look at that. So all of a sudden, the novice home buyer is going to say, oh my God, this property has electrical problems, right? And you're like, no, we just need to put a screw in there. Well, why did he say have a professional electrician look at it? Because he is a generalist and he can't give advice. He can't make suggestions.
Yeah,
right?
He's gonna go through and not take the liability on. He's gonna disclose there could be an issue here with all of your major systems, and so therefore, go get licensed people to go look at it all, which is
right. And that scares the hell out of first-time investors, even investors that have bought a few properties before. That scares them to death. So you have to really set the expectations of people. And for you to have, as the seller, to have a relationship with the buyer's inspector, that can put you in liability, right?
Right.
And for that appraiser, and you have that relationship, that can put them at risk with the bank that they're representing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a really difficult one. So you got to really,
What I do on my stuff for my inspector, because of that issue, is a lot of times I'll order my own inspection and go through it write down the cost next to it and what needs to be done, and say minor, mid-grade, major, and so that way before I go and even send that to my client, I'll go through it to counterbalance that exact thing, because not everybody knows what things cost like you and I do on a construction job. If it's a GFC height that takes 10 minutes to fix or something like that, And so I think those types of things are very, very key to do with an inspector, to go through that report with them and have them tell you verbally all the things they can't write down, because that's huge. And then with the appraisers, we've had the same issues where, I come up with 5 comps within half a mile of the property within the last 6 months, and they pick foreclosures as comps. And you're going, because that was the only thing that they saw in the MLS that had pictures. And, we've gone through now and said, hey, whoever's meeting with the property, here's the comps we pulled. You got to do what you want, but this is what we see. Let me know if you see anything different. But even that's a thin line. You got to be careful with that aspect. And sometimes they're too afraid of the regulation, like you said, and they appraise it low. And you're going, well, great. I don't know how to justify this, adjustment that you made for $10,000, which makes no logical sense or something, right? So I think that finding a good appraiser is key to have on your team, but also they can be very difficult because a lot of them don't have a high knowledge base about what's going on in the market. Like you said, you got a lot of the people that got weeded out because the appraisal management companies took a big chunk of the money. So a lot of the good people left. What about affiliates, which could include wholesalers, bird dogs, even mentors and things like that, to utilize outside people, educators like that can help you. What type of outside affiliates do you think relate to real estate as a whole?
Well, I mean, this is a people business, right?
Right.
You can never forget that. And it's come cliche, and everybody's like, yeah, well, no, duh, obviously it's a people business, blah, 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 blah. But it really is. I mean, every piece of real estate you transact, you're going to buy or sell from or to another person. Like, there's just no way around it. Right. And I think that's even become more evident over the last, 20 years, since the year 2000, and the smartest minds of Silicon Valley have tried to replace the real estate agent, or tried to replace the investor and the middleman, and trying to just transact real estate with the push of a button. And it's just, and I think in 2005 there are 1.2 million real estate agents in the United States, and here we are in 2017. There's 1.2 million real estate agents in the business. So it's like,
right? Yeah,
you got to have people, and your relationships, whether it's directly or indirectly, are going to be the source of all of your buyers and sellers and your tenants, right? Mm-hmm. So I think with bird dogs and other wholesalers, other investors, I wouldn't look at other investors and wholesalers as competition ever. Those relationships will turn into deals all the time. Matt, you and I, we can't buy them all, right? So, yeah.
But you have different resources than I have, and I have different resources that you have. We can always help each other, So
we have different goals. We have different places where we are financially. Maybe we need cash this month, or we want to flip something, or maybe we need cash flow, so we're going to hold something. Like, that changes all the time. Right. Educators, I believe you should invest in your education nonstop. I think mastermind groups are phenomenal, and not real estate, but also in other industries as well.
You just did an epic intensive just recently, right? For your course that you taught. Tell us a little bit about that. Was that like a 3-day type thing, or a weekend thing, or?
Yeah, so it's a 3-day event. It's the first day, the day before we call it, is our mastermind event, where our elite clients and customers will come in, and we'll have a mastermind session, very much a horseshoe type format, where it's mostly group created content. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and I'll teach, and I have some guest speakers. My tax attorney comes in. I got my guys on the ground. They come and they teach their ground negotiating tactics and everything. And it doubles as a fulfillment event for people that have purchased our education in the past. And it's also an insight for people that might want to participate and join in the future. So we're really different in our educational events, is that we make sure that they actually leave with stuff, and there is no sales pitch ever. You know what I mean? But I don't even know where we're going there. But so invest in your education, the mastermind thing, the mentor thing, your operators, your marketing team, your real estate assistant. Like, everything is a source of something. It's a source of a property, it's a source of a buyer, or it's a source of a partner or an investor. So I think as long as you maintain all those relationships, I think personal notes are fantastic for every single person you come in contact with. And don't keep yourself a secret. Let everybody know exactly what you're looking for, whether you're looking for properties, you're looking for buyers, or you're looking for investors. You know, when someone says on a daily basis, "Hey, Matt, what's up?" Don't say same old, same old. You know what I'm saying? Oh, nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're like, I'm doing this, and this is all new.
I've got 2 new properties in Memphis, and they're cash flow beasts, and I'm looking for buyers today. What's up with you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just it doesn't have to be like a hard pound pitch or anything.
Just
open your mouth and maintain the relationship. Don't keep what you do a secret.
I think that's probably one of the best ways to develop those team members too, is going to networking events, getting the word out there yourself. I mean, at these networking events and, you know, the other educational, I'm sure just that your intensive, there was probably, you know, totally different, tons of different team members that you could develop just in that one room alone. And so constantly going to those, you slowly develop all the team members you need, right? So,
yep.
Okay, and then so I think we're pretty much out of time at 7:31. We got to get going pretty quick here. But Matt, can you tell us really quick how you work with investors, what you're looking for right now? Is there any ways anybody on the line or myself can help you out in any way?
Let's see. What are we looking for? I mean, we look for this kind of the same person. We share the kind of the same client. People that want to learn how to do what we do.
Okay.
And you know, for people that got the retirement accounts, they're looking for just nice little passive investment instruments that they can put in there. That never have to touch. You know, we can help people with that.
Okay, and how do they get in touch with you?
You can go to epicrealestate.com, epicrealestate.com, and that's kind of the center of our universe, and you can contact us there.
Nice. And if anybody's interested in getting a hold of us, you can go to OCGproperties.com, and we'll be able to help you in any way we can as well. So thank you guys very much. Thanks a lot, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Love talking to somebody. It's rare I get to talk to somebody with as much experience as you have. So really, really appreciate it. And thanks for the knowledge base. I'm sure we'll have you on again. You know, you can talk about 50 billion different topics. So I'm sure we'll do another topic soon. So
thanks, Maddie. Talk to you soon.
Right, talk to you soon.